Okay.
All right. Good morning or good evening, depending on your time zone. Right. Right. So my topic for today is do schools kill creativity? And short answer is yes. That's it. That's my presentation. That is my opinion, by the way. So everything I'll be saying today is my opinion, not written in stone. You're actually allowed to have contrary opinions. Yeah. So what is education? Can anyone define education for us? Anyone? Something different from what is here on the screen.
Education is to educate.
To be enlightened. Okay. So according to definition here, it is the process of receiving or giving systematic instructions, especially at a school or a university, right? So the whole point of education is a generation in a sense, preparing the next generation for the real life world, passing down knowledge from one generation to another. Any form or any process, really, when one passes information to another person, can be termed as education, right? And up next, creativity is the use of imagination or original ideas to create something that has value. So the argument is that education as we have it currently today, it doesn't exactly help. It actually kills creativity. Okay. Right. So in education, and we should treat them equally. So right now, we don't actually treat forms of creativity in education as important. If you, or let's have a show of hands. How many people here did things like music or fine arts in primary school? All right, most people in the room. How many people did it in secondary school? Junior secondary school. But you stopped doing it, or you did it in senior secondary. How many people did it in university? What is the
Yeah.
I'll call that art, but okay. Let's leave it at that. So actually, if you notice, as you go down education, all these things usually tends to decrease, except you choose to major in those specific fields, right? And there's this system of education everywhere, almost everywhere in the world, where you have the compulsory subjects or the ones that people treat most important. You have math and the language. For us, yes, English, math and English, and they're like the most important, right? And most times you have lots of people that do them. You do math and English maybe like 2 or 3 times in a week, right?
Yeah.
But let's now go down a step. After math and English, you now have other arts and not arts now, sciences and humanities, right? Which you do every other day also in the week. And at the bottom of everything, you now have arts. No, I'm talking about school generally. You now have like things like music, drama, and likes that are not really considered as important because people will tell you like, oh, what do you want to use it? And most people don't see it as actually important in the real sense. So I actually believe that all those things should also be put with the same or equal bearing as things like math and English. And all those things also help to bring out creativity that might be hidden in people. Pablo Picasso once said that all children are born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. So lots of times when we go through formal education and all these things, there are a lot of things that happen that tend to push us away from being creative. Is this saying that if you're not prepared to be wrong, you never come up with something new or original, right? Come up with original ideas. But the thing is, if you're not prepared to have it here, actually train you to always be right. The educational system we have actually frowns on being wrong, right? When you go through school, when you take tests and all those things, you have to be right, right? And that kind of gives you a fear of being wrong. So you want to stay on the safe side and actually always be right. And that might in turn lessen or try to suppress all the little bits of creativity they might have. Okay. And by the time most children become adults, they would have lost their capacity to be creative, because people would stigmatize mistakes, frown on it. Right. So next question now is, how valuable is the degree? So the process of our education right now, most of your primary and secondary education is just kind of geared towards preparing you for university, right? To get admission into university. But how important is the degree in the real sense? Right? So the educational system we have actually trains people to pass these standardized tests, things like JAM, things like WAEC and the likes, and not actually gain useful knowledge or skills that they can use in day-to-day life. Okay, another quick question. Out of everything you learned in school, say even in university, how many of them have you used this year? Like how many percent of what you learned in school have you used this year? Popo?
I like that book, and I made it.
How have you used it in school? Hmm? Okay. How much? Like how many percent?
What I learned this class. I learned this.
I can say I've used the percentage. I probably would not be able to quantify it, but one way or the other, I mean, I know what you learned in school. I know that one way or the other.
All right. But do you think most of what you actually learned is actually important?
Do you have to do it here? Guys, you can't hear the people that are talking to Bolade. They are too far from the microphone.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say the things we learned in school are not important, which is something I always try to say. How do you spend 5 years in school and say everything is not important?
All right.
So probably it doesn't apply to some things I do today, but then one way or the other just factors into some of the things I do.
Right.
So that's
When I say just don't believe that I spent 5 years in school. I think it's not being in denial. I'm serious.
So I think I would like to say that everything I say here is of my own opinion and is not fact.
Everybody's
So
opinion.
for me, my 5 years in school didn't get to waste, and I still use some things, which is why
You
I
guys are
said
just
no
talking to
everything.
yourselves.
Of
We
course,
can't
and
hear
I
you.
can agree with the percent.
You've forgotten those of us on the call.
So we're
Exchange the
quite
microphone
close
so that
to
we
the
can
mic.
follow.
I think I'll just carry it.
Carry it, yeah.
Is it fine now?
It's fine now, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Jerry made a comment that I mentioned that I spent 5 years in school and it couldn't all have been in waste, that's a denial. So I mentioned that me saying that is of my own opinion, and I think that the 5 years I spent in school was not a waste. I had a couple of things that I've learned and that still apply, maybe not in my day-to-day activities or the things I do in Kota and Kush, but one way or the other, they still apply and they kind of just help me. Maybe it's even in picking up a new thing, and I just remember that it looks like we did something like this in school. I probably don't remember exactly what we did, but it's a foundation for me. So.
Okay.
So sorry, I wasn't done with what I was saying for you.
I had to. I just had to say that because I kind of knew where we were going to.
Okay, so I want to end with that. I was going to end with what is useful in school could have been learned in a few. What I need to that used to could have been learned in a few months or less than a year. So that's my point. Of course, there are things that are useful in school that I learned in school, but then most of the 5 years were just spent doing things that wouldn't really help my future. That's what I believe.
All right, so I'll share a very quick story of my first day in my school. Right, who mentioned this school, but I think most people here know it. Right, so on the first day of school, we're told that we're going to inscribe our names on the trees. So there would always be that record that we were there when the school started and all that, and it was a nice idea, right? So all of us came outside to the front of faculty and we wanted to plant. So they gave a plant to each department, and all of us had our plants and we were ready to start digging. So came to supervise the planting of trees there. And then she was like, oh, we are scientists. People that were in humanities opposite us, they came, they dug holes and they put their plants in there. And after like 5 minutes, they were done. And they were gone. But for us, she was like, we are in like the sciences, right? So we have to ensure that the amount of spaces between the trees that we plant has to be equal and all that. And we're like, oh, no problem. That's in the faculty, as soon as like pillar was equal. And the man just like scrapped the boy's idea, like no. I mean, she's a doctor. I mean, you can't know more than me. And decided to start. In the process, people would bend, and because people couldn't, we were there. There was someone suggested a solution, right? But they just pushed the boy solution, right? So opinions of people that are learning hardly matter. Don't matter. I'll talk about another lecturer I had that taught us Pascal. Right. So when we were learning Pascal, he gave us examples in class and stuff. And when he gives you questions, that he gives to you, right? So if he tells you to solve, let's say, quadratic formula, for instance, there are multiple ways to actually get an answer. But if you use any other way apart from his own method, you'd automatically fail, even if you'd be able to produce the same result. So we're actually taught to think how to pass. We didn't really learn how to actually solve problems and come up with original ideas. Right. So moving on. So the next, I found this in an article that or a series of tweets, like a thread I found on Twitter, where they were talking about unemployment and underemployment in Nigeria. So by the way, here we have a graph that says how valuable a university degree is in Nigerian job markets. So here we have a count of the total sum of unemployment and underemployment. So according to them, from their metrics, unemployment means people who are unemployed are people who have people who do less than 20 hours of work in a week. And people who are underemployed are people who do like less than 40 hours, like between 20 to 40 hours. So this is like total number of people who don't have like a regular job every week, right? And from the metrics, it actually shows that there are actually more people in Nigeria, or the percentage of people in Nigeria who have a degree, like that's like post-secondary school degree, that there are actually more of them, like the percentage of them that are unemployed. By unemployed, I mean unemployed and underemployed here, than people who have just primary school or secondary school results or secondary school degrees. So having a degree in the real sense, like a BSc or any of those other things, doesn't exactly give you much of an advantage over other people. Also, okay, before I go into this, let me just say quickly. All right, let me just go ahead to this. Right. So children born this year should be ready to enter the job market, say by 2045, right? and that's in 25 years' time, just using a rough approximate. And Nigeria's population is projected to be hit 360 million people by 2045. In all honesty, we don't actually know how the job market would look like, right? And with our current educational system, I believe that it doesn't really prepare people for that future. If you have children learn the same thing that we learned, and we also learn the same thing our parents learned in school, by the time they get there or get to the labor market, they'll be mostly unprepared for it, right? And going by this, there's other metrics that have even shown that the rate of unemployment in Nigeria has been constantly increasing. That's because Nigeria is producing way more graduates than the job market can actually take. So I think there is a need for people to start to look outside of formal education, to look outside of just the 3 professions that Nigerian parents recognize. There's this funny saying that to Nigerian parents, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a failure, like if you're not any of those things. So I think there's a need for people to start looking outside of all those things and look for different creative outlets, look for opportunities, look for original ideas that people can use to create employment for themselves and even other people around them. Right. So here we'll talk about like the problem. So another problem that we actually have, or one of the major problems, is apart from how our educational system is structured, people or parents also tend to steer children away from things that they're actually interested in. You have someone maybe who genuinely enjoys singing and is passionate about it, but would be forced to read, say, medicine or something, because, I mean, who's going to pay you to be a musician? Go and be a doctor. This person is a doctor, he's successful at it, right? So go ahead and do this. So people tend to get steered away from doing things that they enjoy and would be forced to go like to only study or learn things that maybe are trending at that point, or like, oh, there are lots of opportunities here, go and do it. So it's not even about interest, but just learning. In my department, let me use computer science as an example. We had someone in my class. She was the top female student in the class. No, she wasn't in first class student, but she was almost first class. And sometime in our final year, with our new HOD, who was a doctor, he did I think he did his PhD in something around machine learning and artificial intelligence and stuff. So he entered the class one day and was talking to us, and I think he mentioned something about like operating systems. I was like, oh, like ask the girl like what's her setup was like, what was the specs of her system, right? And that's about, oh, what OS is she using? And she couldn't reply because she did not know what operating system she was using. But she's like one of the top students in our class.
What year was that?
Final year.
What year?
That was 2017, 2018, 2019. Right. Then people had to like whisper the answer to her, but she still said something wrong or something that was very different from what they asked and stuff, right? Later on, I think I remember having conversations with her and talking about her interests, and she was like, oh, she actually wanted to be a pilot, but one of our uncles was like, computer science, like there are lots of opportunities in tech and computer science and stuff, so she should go study it, and that was it. She did not really have a say, and she had no passion for it. So, I mean, we can't really put it on her 100%. Right. So right now, another issue we have is that academic ability is seen as like the metric for intelligence, and it is rarely the case, right? There are lots of people who are creative, but might not do as well academically, and because of that, people would see them as not smart, or what they actually like doing or what they are interested in doing. For instance, if you have someone in class who is good at math or English, people would perceive that person as, oh, that guy is actually smart. But if you have someone who isn't good at that, but is just good at, say, fine art or drawing, or say Yoruba or something else, people would actually have this perception that that person is not as intelligent, or how the person is not as smart as the other person that would be good at math. So people already create this what would I call it now? There's this stereotype, exactly, that people who are not maybe very good academically would not be also intelligent, but it isn't the case, right? So here we have the story of a lady, Gillian Lynn. She directed two of the longest running shows in Broadway history. She was also awarded the Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. It's one of the highest honors that you can achieve in your different fields in like the UK. But when she was young and in like primary school, she had issues with classes. Like she was very restless, always playing, and she couldn't really focus in class. So her teacher called her mom and told her mom that she feared that her child might have a learning disorder because she wasn't doing at all in her classes. So the teacher advised that she should go see a doctor or someone that can advise her about her child's condition. So she went to see a doctor, and the doctor asked her a few questions and noticed that she was quite restless where she was. So the doctor told the mom that, oh, I want to talk to you outside. And he decided to play some music off a radio, and they went outside. And immediately they left, she stood up and she started dancing there. And the doctor was like, oh, your daughter is not sick, she's just a dancer. I guess then there wasn't really a term for people with learning disorders like that. I think right now most people call it ADHD, right? And right now, if someone probably has a learning disorder, you'd probably just give the person pills or drugs to use to calm them down, right? So for her, the doctor just advised that they take her to maybe a dance school or somewhere where she can expel all that energy. And that's what her mom did. And when she went to the dance school, she said she saw other people like her, people that were also restless or people that could not think except they were moving. And she started dancing and she excelled at what she did. Um, she's dead now, but she was a millionaire before she died. So I think we can safely say she was quite successful in her field, even though she didn't follow the exact conventional path that most people take. Yeah. Right. So while I was doing this, I actually also decided to do a little bit of research and find out, oh, let's look at countries that have different educational systems or things that actually work. And for metrics, Finland has one of the best educational systems in the world. And there are lots of things that they do that is very, very different from what we do here. So let's just take a look at those things. Right, so they don't have any standardized tests and there's almost no homework. I think on the average, most students spend like 10 minutes a day doing homework in Finland. And they also don't have any form of standardized tests. So there's no WAEC or JAM or things like that. Exactly. So they just grade students like that in each school. And they don't really have any form of standardized test. And the reason why they do that is that they actually want students to learn, to actually learn stuff and not just train them or teach them how to pass tests. They actually want to make sure that students would actually understand and have knowledge. Another thing that they mentioned was that they actually also don't have, there's almost no multi-choice exams. So they don't really give multi-choice exams where students can just guess, right, and get an answer correctly. So you actually have to know what you are talking about if to get a question right. Right, next, less school time. I think the average here said that like most students in Finland only go through about 20 hours of school in a week. That's roughly 4 hours a day. And they also have like the shortest school years in like the West, right? In like most of Europe and America and the likes. So they also have the shortest school time. They also believe that students should have a lot of time to actually play and do other things that they are interested in aside from school. So if you give a child free time, you probably play with people, socialize with people, maybe check for something on the internet and has enough time to actually learn about things that he or she would actually be interested in. I won't just be forced to spend most of her days just learning about things. And there's also this thing where if you sit someone down in a school for say 8 hours at a go, the person will probably stop learning after maybe like 4 hours or something. Most of what you actually do won't be very productive anymore. So they actually let students to play and have lots of time to themselves. Then schools actually prioritize students' happiness. So in Finland, most teachers are actually more concerned about their students being happy and enjoying their classes than just going through the curriculum and trying to make sure that they pass. So they are also concerned about having students being positive and happy also, aside from just learning. Then another thing I also learned I found interesting was that students actually start school at age 7 in Finland, right? And compulsory education actually stops at 16, and anything beyond that is actually optional. So no one has to go through the path of like after secondary school, you go to universities and such. So they also provide some other traditional forms of education after this, like their secondary education, where they can go to learn from like something like an internship and actually give them like real life experiences, right? So they actually learn from people in the industry. So they would actually be learning mostly things that would be very useful to them, and not things that are just in the curriculum. Another thing that I also found interesting was that teachers actually mentioned that sometimes they actually kind of digress a little out of the curriculum just to talk about things that students are actually interested in learning. So you have lots of times where a teacher might want to teach something, but students might seem inquisitive about something else, right? And the teacher will just choose to digress and talk about the need at that point in time, and not just try to finish the curriculum between the stipulated maybe 12 weeks or 13 weeks and give them tests or exams like that, right? So students actually learn things that are useful to them. Another thing I also learned was that education in Finland is actually free, and it is a crime, it's a criminal offense to charge someone for education. Yeah, so there are almost no private schools there. Some people create private schools just out of like philanthropy and stuff, but you cannot charge people for education. So education is not seen as a business. Yeah, so there's that too. Right. So students are also taught to think for themselves. They engage them in lots of activities like arts and things where children will have to express themselves and have to create original ideas. You might have an art class where a teacher just gives people like pieces of paper and have them to just create shapes and things out of it. So doing that, you can't just copy someone or like follow the curriculum. You actually have to think of something and create original ideas or original things. And I think all those things are actually very important in like forming the human mind, especially when children are quite young. Having them create things like that actually helps them to retain their creativity, right? And it doesn't just die out along the line. And they also prioritize socializing with their peers. So from the interview I saw, they were talking to the Finnish Minister of Education, and she was also saying that students also need lots of time to play with their peers and socialize with them, because lots of their learning also comes from their peers. There are lots of things you actually remember right now that you would have been one of your friends or someone like that that would have told you, but those things would also stick to you, right? So they also prioritize students learning things from their peers, right? So what can Nigeria do? What can we do as a country to also improve our educational system? What can we do to improve or boost productivity? And I would leave this part open to all of us. Does anyone have any ideas of things that we can actually do to improve our educational system? So do you have ideas before I give my own thoughts or my own opinions on the matter? All right, Dan Larry.
Yeah. So like before probably see what we can do. I want to talk about two things. One, to give like a short counter argument of the fact that school does not actually kill creativity, and also to answer the question of how valuable is our degree.
Okay.
So let's start with what the concept of school is. So school is an institution to be enlightened, right? And to be enlightened, it means to know something. And based on what you know, you can do many things. You can make many decisions based on what you know, right? So I think that's what school is supposed to be. So if you ask an average Nigerian, or almost all of us here, why we went to school, basically we all went to school because we feel we will get a better life. Like if I go to school, I'll be successful. If I go to school, if I study medicine, if I study this course, I'll make it. I have money. Basically, that's why we went to school. Now, even while in school, many of us, of course, we take a lot of courses and we read. We realize that if you are studying a course, for instance, you will realize that there are different specializations to that course. Okay, so when you are reading a course or taking a course, you are not reading it because you want to know about that course. Like, number one, you are even in the school for the wrong reason. You are not in school to be enlightened, you are just in school because you want to make it. So then, okay, probably in school, maybe you can even have a change of arts. Most of us went to school, we read and studied because of our motive. If you are in school and you have good grades, your chances of making it is higher than not having good grades. That's our motive from start. So I come out of school with the good grades, and I'm in a world that I really can't do anything because I really don't know anything. I'm not even really enlightened. What I have at my hand is my degree, right? So basically, I've passed through the system not being enlightened, like what's we supposed to enlighten me. So I just basically did something like followed a particular system. The system is flawed because even our lecturers are lecturing because it's just a job. They want to survive, they want to feed their family. So it's not that they want to actually pass knowledge. So if someone goes into the school with a mindset of, okay, let me give an instance. So I studied elect. We took a lot of courses. Elect is very broad. So I'll probably have taken a course on transformers. So transformer, we know electric transformer. So of course, I could have taken transformer and like, okay, in transformer, we taught a lot of things, how it works, a lot of calculation, everything that is happening inside. Many of us were not interested in that. We just wanted to just know the mathematics that is inside, pass and move. Now, if there was someone different among us that took special interest in transformer and outside the scope of what is taught in class, he started researching. The class was giving him a basis for what he can build upon to actually do stuff. He could come to the point whereby he can even make his own transformer different from modern one, improve transformer. I mean, so all these inventions we see, they actually made in the university. Like, so basically, we're all in the school for the wrong reason, actually. So I don't think school killed our creativity. I would say we killed our creativity because we we ourselves are not, we don't want, uh, we just want to have a good life. Basically, that's what we want. Not, we don't want to, I mean, if I'm studying an engineering course, I'm expected to be an engineer. If I'm a first class engineering student, I'm supposed to be like the standard engineer. I mean, I should be like one of the best engineers in the world, right? But no, that's not the case because what that first class amounts to just means I've had A's in some courses. That's what it is. And I had a lot of A's more than B's. So that's what it means. And like I know, and the reason what I'll probably use my first class for is to apply for jobs just to see. That's why you see a first class engineering student in the bank. So it tells you why we are in school. Now, on the second topic of how valuable is our degree. So I'm going to put it in this way on what was the value of 1,000 naira like 20 years ago to now.
A lot more than it is.
It's not the same anymore. So I think it's the same with our degree. If you look at the university system like some 50 years ago or some 40 years ago, I can tell you that okay, I'm talking about Nigeria now. As bad as we see it right now, things were still happening, like good things. University were still doing a little bit of inventions because I can remember in my department we had the semiconductor laboratory where we fabricate resistors. So it was last functional like over 40 or 50 years ago, but the lab is still there. Of course, we still go there. Nothing is working, but we do the theory and the yes, it's more like a museum. But I'm saying, so if someone who graduated from there 50 years ago would have probably made some stuff, made the resistor, make other stuff. At that point in time, the degree is more like an evidence of this guy has passed through this system and he can do this. It's more like the school's opinion of you, right? So at that point, if I graduated 50 years ago with a BSc, it means I must have done some things, a lot of things be there. So right now, the standard has changed. Even the standard of the world has changed. What the world needed 50 years ago is not really what it is now. So most of what we see in the world now actually won't really rely on degrees. Like we see a lot of companies springing up, people that drop out, they are becoming billionaires. They are giving us values they are giving value to millions of people. And of course, they didn't go to school. So the context is the degree of our degree now is definitely not what it used to be. So before the degree was, the school system then really tailored with the society. I mean, if you come out of school, you'll be able to give value to the society. So right now, coming out of school does not mean you give value to the society. It just means you probably went to school, did some courses. Now everything now boils down to who you are and what was your motive for going to school. So if you went to school for the wrong motive or the wrong reason, I don't think you have to. I don't think you had the right to say school killed your creativity because you didn't really have it. You were not creative to do anything before you first.
All right. All right, thank you, Dan Larry. So hold on, chill. So actually have a counter argument for that. Okay, I'm not doing it. I Right.
Come and talk. My own is the speech. So I will try and keep it short. So just say something about it's more of us that make up like school doesn't kill our creativity, more of we kill our creativity ourselves, right? It's still something in that direction. Like it's not really on the school. Like in that direction. Like not like that exactly, but in that direction. Like it's not really on the school that our creativity is being killed. It's more on us. So in my own opinion, basically, I feel school lack of school kind of makes up much of who we are today. Like because as we come up from a very young age, we start like Finland starts school by 7 years, right? We start school like 2 3 years, most of us in Nigeria, and that's a very young age to change what your view of life is from a very young age. So I think school kind of has a very big impact of who you are right from a very young age. Of course, your community also has a big impact, but much of what is in your community, like people in your community, are also dependent on the school in your community. So I think right from your very young age, school is already changing your whole view on life, what you can do in your very very big foundation. So at the end of the day, it still falls back to the community, which falls back to the school that taught the community, and goes on like that. So I think it's not really on you. And the way the whole Nigeria community is all structured is not really like I won't if I was born in let's say the UK and let's after like 4 years I come down to Nigeria, I definitely won't be in school to try and get the grade and stuff. I will be tending more of getting the knowledge for what I need in life, not getting
Are
grades.
you sure?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
Sorry, who is speaking?
Shade,
Who
it was
just
Efe that spoke now.
Efe? Okay. Efe, so
So
you think if you're born in the UK, you won't be in school for the degree?
I want to say something. I think that most people, because the narrative has always been that school, that or something, most people see it as an excuse to not even do what they're supposed to do. You see students in school, you see a student in school that left Lagos and went to wherever his school is, and then this particular student does not attend class. You ask, why did you not attend class? So there are two things. It could be that when he did not attend class, he stayed at home and was probably learning something online, which is, I don't know if it's fine, but it makes more sense. There's also the part where this person stays at home to see movies or to play games. Now, at the end of the day, when you ask this particular student, it says, oh, Kowani Kokon class, nonsense. There's also the student that goes to class and stays through the whole class but does not learn anything, and you say they didn't teach you in class. Now, why not take the initiative and probably learn stuff on your own? Like Damlari said now, most of these things would probably be foundation to knowledge you should know. Kofo thought about SQL today. I'm sure as computer science students, one way or the other, you did SQL. They might not have taught you inner joins or whatever. Over the syllabus is there in the syllabus. As a student, what are the things you ought to do? So I'm not saying the school does not also have their own blame. They probably have most of the fault. But as students also, we should also take the initiative and try to better ourselves, improve your knowledge, which is what most people are not doing. And then people come out of school and you cannot show anything for it because you probably read in school, but you didn't understand what you were reading. Who will give you a job? So those things are also part of it. We don't just blame the school, because when we keep saying this, the school system is bad, the school system is bad. I say it in front of my younger brother. School work or anything, we weren't taught anything. He gets to school, he doesn't go to class, and he tells me, Aunt Shade, they did not teach us anything in school. It's true. So because we keep repeating this over and over again, it rings in people's head, in new people that are coming up, it rings in their head, and they're probably not motivated to do what they're supposed to do. The system is already messed up. We're looking for ways to make it better, but prior to then, also try as much as possible to improve yourself.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shadi. Right, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Let me say something. Let me say something quickly.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I think.
Bolade, is that you?
Yeah, this is Bolade, by the way.
Can
So
I
I think,
contribute, or you want to finish first?
okay, you can go ahead, sir.
So, Steve,
Okay.
can I? Okay, quick to wrap it up.
Someone wants to say something.
Yes, it's me.
Oh, Nifem, okay, if I mistake, you can talk.
All right. Yeah. So, in addition to what Shade said, I think one of the reasons why people say such today in our society is because we have put the responsibility of getting educated, we have put the entire responsibility on the school. I think, I mean, for some of the examples that Bolade used and all, like they had to get education, even for people that drop out, the likes of Bill Gates and the likes, like the education they got was not just the reason why they were able to do some of the things they are doing today. It's not because the system over there is great as well. I think it's also because people around them and even they themselves took on the responsibility of getting educated. I think education is schooling is one of the ways of getting educated. I think the bigger picture is getting educated in a bigger sense, which can be done, outside of school. So I think that should be like the the priority because as a child, I mean, growing up, even during summer holidays, my mom and dad would say, "Oh yeah, you're going to school, you're going to summer lessons and all that," and then like there wasn't time to even explore our creativity. No time to do other activities that will help. So I think our system, our society here, puts the entire responsibility on school. So long you go to school, you'll be this, you'll be that, and all that, and then yeah, that's where I don't think that's cool enough. Yeah, I just thought to mention. So hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first, I'd like to say thanks to Bolade. I think Bolade's presentation is actually really good. But I think there are arguments on both sides, and I don't think it's a right or wrong kind of thing. I think the way the school system is designed overall caters for catches like it's like putting your net in the water. You catch quite a wide breadth of types of fish, but you miss out some. There are exceptions that people that the school system won't work for. And Bolade did talk about some of them. So people with ADHD, learning disabilities, it doesn't mean like Bolade's. Actually, I think you guys should go back and look at Bolade's presentation about some of his definitions. So in Nigeria, as again, when we say school, we shouldn't apply it too broadly. There's the Nigerian educational system, which has its merits, and at certain levels, I think starts breaking apart. So, for example, if we now pick the university educational system, when I was in university, some of my lecturers went to school in Yale, they went to school in University College London, they went to some of the top schools in the world, and they came back to Nigeria to fix, with all the energy to fix the country. But what happened, in my own opinion, is they ended up being frustrated. They took that frustration out on all of us, and that was the version of the educational system we saw, a frustrated set of people. Now, some of my own classmates are now lecturers, and I understand one of them is about to become a professor. So the stories I've heard about him, he has carried on that frustration that was put on him, and he's putting it on his own students. So unfortunately, if you pass through that system, all you know is a frustrated educational system, which is not school. So now, because I've also had the privilege of studying in a different context, in a context where I call my lecturers by first name, I can walk into their office at any time, I can tell them, I argue with them a lot in class without any impact on my grades. So it's a different system there from when, if I just write something that is remotely different from what's in my notebook, I fail. And I think that was one of the things Bolade talked about. So I'm not saying that everything that Bolade said can be applied hook, line, and sinker. So again, the Finnish education system that you said as an example, I'm a fan of it. But also, I realized that if you take that system and put it somewhere else, I don't think anyone has been able to replicate it. So for example, starting school at the age of 7 and all that. Even the UK system, which is where the Nigerian system derived its own whatever from, has got its own issues. But yeah, so I think when we look at the school system, it's not one system. Everybody creates its own system. Unfortunately, I think for the university educational system in Nigeria, it was unfortunately built by extremely frustrated academics who were trained in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Most of them trained abroad. They did really well. They came back to Nigeria. Suddenly, their salaries couldn't even buy them petrol. So that frustration is what you guys have all experienced. They couldn't do any research. They had to be copying Wikipedia. They were using the notes they were taught with. They couldn't generate any new knowledge because they were frustrated people. So, but I don't think that is the real system. So unfortunately, we all passed through that system. We've seen that system doesn't really work, and there's a chance that you can, because you're looking at that through that lens, you say this is school, but that doesn't necessarily mean it is school. So let me just to balance out Bolade's perspective with, say, Damilare perspective, So from the point about creativity, so when I teach design thinking, one of the things we actually talk about is, unfortunately, the educational system does destroy creativity to an extent because I think it brings the hammer of rules and our own system as well. Parents, there were people I grew up with who, when they were playing football, their parents beat them off the football pitch, and their friends ended up playing pro football, and they ended up frustrated doing something else. And I think that was one of the things that Bolade touched on as well. And now that I'm a parent, it was just yesterday, my wife was asking me that if my daughter says she wants to dance, what will I do? So it's easy for us when we are the kids to say our parents didn't support us. But what we need to realize as well is our parents are very nervous. They don't want you to suffer. They don't want you to come and start asking them for money when they're in retirement. So I'm now passing through that phase where, okay, if my child wants to be a dancer, should I support that dancing dream? Or should I say, okay, yeah, you want to be a dancer, great, dance but study, so that at least if all else fails, you still have that strong educational system to back you up. But whether we like it or not, the way the world works, the world recognizes a strong educational system. If you make a first class, it does make a huge impact, a chance, or it gives you access to opportunities. It doesn't mean that if you fail, you won't do well, or you won't do as well as the guy who made the first class. But it just opens up opportunities. I don't think it's a black or white thing, but I think there are strong arguments on both sides. So I think it's more about being open-minded and learning from the counter-arguments than thinking that your position is right. So that's my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Right. So I actually want to. Oh, okay. I actually want to mention something I think I failed to mention, and it kind of still goes a little against some of the ideas now. Right. So, like I said earlier, lots of all these things actually starts from when we are really young, and people are actually groomed to be conditioned to think in that particular manner, right? Of following the educational system, reading, cramming, and stuff. Against what Shadi said of maybe someone playing in class and doing stuff like that, or playing when he's supposed to like go to classes and study. Most likely, that person probably doesn't have passion for whatever it is that that person would have gone. There's no like blind interest. There's no willingness to learn, right? So if all those things are actually not present there, if that person, like I said, most of us were forced to go to university, like it was just the next step. It wasn't really something that we wanted to do. It was just like after secondary school, you have to go to university, and that's how the system works, right? So there wasn't really any underlying interest or willingness to actually go out and actually seek the knowledge or get all those things. It's just something that you have to do, right? And something else I also failed to mention is, if you actually look at the trend from back in the days when our parents were educated and stuff, I think like the whole education, I think there's a kind of an inflation, right? So back in the day, when it was still pretty new in Nigeria, if you had a degree, you would automatically mean you actually get a job, right? Except maybe you don't want to. But your chances of getting a job back then was a lot higher, right, with a BSc, for instance. But right now, you have lots of people that even have their master's degrees and don't have jobs, right? Because of the labor markets that we have right now, it cannot take anybody. So the demands that they would actually ask for different jobs would actually increase, right? And if you are looking at our population, the way things are going, we are producing more graduates than our labor markets can actually take. I think the demands that the labor market would keep asking for over the years would keep increasing, right? So say if things go exactly the same, like in the same trajectory as it's going right now, in say 50 years or something, when our children, I said 50 years, or like 25 years now, when our children are going to be ready, or 30 years for the labor market, if you are still going by the same trajectory, a BSc might not even be enough at that point, right? So they have to keep furthering and going like further, like in their education, to be able to secure jobs, right?
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Hi,
Emmanuel, please let me quickly read my own speech.
Okay.
So I think first, well, while I wasn't here when Bolade started, before Bolade started, I kind of stepped out and I read the topic. So I was just discussing with Shadi right now that I feel, I might be wrong, that we've deviated from the main thing. Well, Bolade's topic is, do schools kill creativity, not education? I'm not sure who said, but it's typically linked with Albert, that education is what is left when you are done schooling. Most people were schooled, they were not educated. What do I mean? I think I was in 200 level when I took a course, and the lecturer said, guys, you're going to become engineers and we'll do what engineers do. You can consult anything you want to consult for my questions. More like open book question, and we did open book exam. For me, that was education, because when I get to the field, you can't tell me I can't consult any physics textbook. But we've been told that you're supposed to cram all the formulas in your head. That is schooling. So I think what we should look at is, education is me learning something, whether it is tangentially related to what I'm doing or not. Education is you knowing that cutting your nail, keep your nails short, is a healthy habit, because it means you have less germs under your nails. Schooling is, you come to school on Monday morning, your nail is not cut, they'll flog you. So the moment such a person exits from that system, the person says, I didn't learn anything in my home economics. But actually, I think, now, me talking, I'll pick up from where Took stopped about being a parent and being a child. I wanted to drop out when I was in 200 level. And I was discussing with one of my friends recently. He said, Wale, why didn't you drop out back then? I said, I would have. If I didn't meet some people who told me, Wale, don't just go to school because of grades. You will finish with a very good grade if you go to school because of grade. Why it is good to finish with a very good grade? Learn something, even if it's just human relation, how to live with human beings. That's all you learn in school. After that thing, I don't think I ever got anything less than an A in any of my presentations. For me, it just felt like, wow. Wow, what I'm learning is presentation is only for projects now. It's only for project and for IT. But when that person said that, I decided to learn how to come up with very good presentations. So we should not look at school to be equal to education. School should ideally educate you. It should teach you how to think. Whether in a perfect world or an imperfect world, teach you how to think. That's why people that we call inventors, typically they don't adhere to the initial convention. That's why I did study medicine, because I felt it was too boring for me. Procedure is procedure. But if we were taught how to think, which is what most people fail to do at home, they are not taught how to think at home. And when they get to school, they are not even taught how to think. So invariably, they become semi-robots. I wake up in the morning, I go to job, I go to my workplace 9 to 5, I do what I'm told to do. I don't think outside what I'm told to do. No tickets from Nifemi. There is nothing for me to do. But the real thing is, okay, so we are building, I'll use ginger, we are building ginger. And I believe the idea of ginger can be applied to this product. That is you thinking outside what you are, in quotes, paid to do. And that is where I think it stems from. When you don't find a way to think for yourself, anything that does not appeal to you becomes a problem, and you don't try to fix it because you don't have to think. You only complain. And Nigeria is bad. Nigeria is bad. What can you do to fix it in your own little sphere? Take, for instance, I'll push it back to Tokes. I will say, Tokes, I want to do this thing. Wale, it's not really the best option, no. But I think you can explore and let's discuss about it. That is Tokes forcing me and instead of coming up to your own, because most of us were not brought up or taught that from early age. Anybody that says something that does not approve of what we think is an antagonist. So school is not education, number one. Learn to think for yourself. I started making decisions about what socks I would wear when I was in primary school. It didn't make any sense. I mean, white is white. But for me, I felt like I was making a decision. That was me learning to think. So it's in bits and pieces like that that we all get to fine-tune ourselves to really think. Because for me, I think the most important thing is you being able to think for yourself, whether or not you learned Laplace theorem or DFD or whatever it is, or it is Fourier series, whatever it is. If you can't think for yourself, that means if you see a problem that you've not been programmed to do, you won't be able to tackle it. And I'll borrow some of the things I said are from books. So, for instance, if you don't know how to read outside what is in the syllabus, you can't be creative, I'm sorry. Because it is garbage in, garbage out. Should I drop the mic? Yes. Thank you.
I think Imana wanted to say something.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so just a few things, not too far from what everybody has said. But first, I think for me, my perspective is, I think this school. So if you actually ask me that what kills creativity, I will say it is the society. And I remember when I was much younger and I was in, I don't remember the time, a teacher in my school taught us totally makes sense. And I was going to, I was just saying it at home. Again, I was just talking about it at home. And I told, so my mom was there when I said, the next thing she did was to school with me. Wow. That this is what the students something like that. Then it's aside from the school school might have a good structure. For example, system, we have lecturers come and they teach you.
Emmanuel, your audio is breaking up. Emmanuel, your audio is breaking up.
Hello.
Engineer Emmanuel.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. It was breaking up before.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was saying, in actual fact, aside from if the school system is good, but we have the society itself that has made a lot of people believe a lot of things. For example, we've been talking about schools and been focusing about universities. But one of the other problems is we have different kind of schools that take different kinds of approaches. But for example, right now, it is not the school that has made people believe that somebody that has BSc is better than somebody that has HND. It is not the school that made that. It is the people that makes other people believe that, and then it transcends into the school, and then it gets the school worse. So people already just see if you go to the polytechnic that you don't know anything, and people that go to university that you are good, and people that go to colleges or school or college of education that you are practically nothing. But it is the society that is actually that started that, not the school itself. So I would say the school's system itself does not exactly keep creativity, because we have technical colleges, we have polytechnics, we have college of educations. In some other countries, we have schools that are focusing on, for example, we have football academies. It's a school. We have different kinds of schools, but because in this part of the world we have the society already believe that there's only one school structure that makes sense, and if you don't go there, you don't matter. Then that belief already then disturbs a lot of things. So invariably, what I'm just saying is the school itself. We have different kinds of schools. We have different kinds of school structures and different ways schools are run, focusing on different kinds of people. But we as society are focused on just one of it, which is primary school through university, and taking that to be the only meaningful part. And if you don't fit into that part, so we as the society are the ones then killing. For example, there are some people that they are much better at analyzing things and all those things. Then you're an engineer, you want to analyze and all, you want to be in the office and do all those things and monitor things. Go to the university. You want hands-on, go to a polytechnic. But now nobody wants to go to a polytechnic unless they give them, or they don't know book or something like that. No one wants to go. But that is actually where you can learn that kind of thing, and you will be really, really, really good at it. So we have different kinds of school structure, and some of these other structures actually makes you creative. But you cannot say that because a kind of school is meant to be focusing on more of how the theory works plus some practical, and somebody that really, really wants to do the practical goes there and does not really get it, and then put the blame on that school. We can put part of the blame on that school, but a lot of the blame on the society that has also caused this person to go to this kind of school instead of going to this other kind of school, because they've made this other kind of school look very, very meaningless. Yeah, I think I'll just stop there. Thank you. I hope you heard me.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you. So I think it looks like I want to stop the recording here. Fine. It looks like we're done for the day. Thanks, Bolade, for this. I don't even know what I'll call it, but thank you.